In 1946, two climbers followed a name on a map into the eastern Karakorams, only to find a mountain so vast and hostile that every route vanished beneath ice, rock, and rumor.
Hey, glad you're here. Welcome to the Himalayan Journals. Here on this channel, we bring to you real stories from century old field notes. We try to keep it simple and calm here. Think of it as a documented history of the Himalayas from the early 1900s, covering stories of indigenous wisdom, epic expeditions, and groundbreaking science passed on just as they were recorded. Subscribe, zone out, binge.
In the summer of 1946, J.O.M. Roberts looked northward from Ladakh toward a mountain that had long caught his imagination, Saser Kangri. It rose to 25,170 feet, vast and glistening, with three satellite peaks above 24,000 feet. Between the Nubra and Shyok valleys, it stood aloof, little explored and far removed from India's familiar hill stations. Roberts planned to change that, setting his sights on a climb that would take him deep into the eastern Karakorams. Information was scarce. Dr. Tom Longstaff's account from 1909 mentioned steep faces of rock on the southwest, and little more. The Vissers had surveyed the region in 1929, but their work yielded no English record. Roberts pieced together what he could, aware that even the photographs in Neve's picturesque Kashmir confused one peak for another. His party would be small, 4 Europeans and 4 Sherpas, away from civilization for 3.5 months. But the plans changed quickly. Equipment was delayed, and Charles Wiley, once a fellow planner, withdrew. In the end, only Roberts and George Lorimer remained. By May, after hurried telegrams to Darjeeling, Roberts secured 2 Sherpas. Pasang, an old companion, recovered from malaria in time to join, bringing along Sonam, a quiet, powerful man with a face hardened by the hills. A Gurkha rifleman, Purka Bahadur, came free of charge, his smile balancing Sonam's stoic silence. The small expedition would move lightly, carry enough for a month's siege if luck turned their way, and rely on experience more than numbers. They left Srinagar on the 18th of May, crossing the Zoji with 7 ponies, then followed the treaty road to Leh. On the 30th of May, after long days of walking, they arrived, reorganized their loads, and prepared for the Kardung. The pass at 18,000 feet was closed to traffic, yet they became the first large party of the season to cross. Snow lay deep, but at dawn, the air was still and clear. On the summit, Saser Kangri appeared 45 miles away, steep, icy, and immense. Panamik lay ahead, the gateway to their mountain. On June 5th, after a 250-mile journey, they reached the village, a green valley with poplars, wild roses, and clear water flowing through meadows. From here, 2 approaches led to the Saser group, the Pukpoche Lungpa and the Gamshing Lungpa. Time was short, and Longstaff had spoken well of the Pukpoche. They decided to follow his path and trust their fortune. On the 8th of June, they entered the ravine with 20 coolies and a sheep. After a steep climb and mild rock work, camp was made at 15,000 feet. Saser Kangri 4, later called Cloud Peak, shone ahead, though the main summit remained hidden. They explored both the north and south glaciers, reaching 18,000 feet on the north, but finding no access to Saser. Poor weather and fatigue turned them back. Soon they moved to a higher site between the glacier snouts, naming it Junction Camp. Illness struck. Purka Bahadur lay fevered with joint pain, his groans echoing through the thin air. 2 days passed in anxious waiting before they moved again. On the 14th of June, they established a camp at 17,000 feet beside the South Glacier. The weather cleared at last. Roberts and Lorimer climbed through the silence of the high world, tracing possible routes. The west face of Saser loomed too dangerous. Ice cliffs, hanging glaciers, and bulging snowfields guarded every approach. The goddess of luck, Roberts wrote, was elsewhere. Attention turned to Cloud Peak. On June 19th, they began their climb, establishing camp 3 days later at 19,000 feet below a ridge they called the Footstool Col. From here, they aimed to reach the col at 21,000 feet. On 22nd June, they set out in gusty weather, climbing steep ice covered with soft snow. Step by step, the work became exhausting. Roberts, drained and uneasy about the footing, called for retreat. When they were 500 feet from the top, that evening, the footstool became the toadstool, their pride bruised but humor intact. Snow the next day kept them idle. When clear weather returned, doubts grew. Supplies were low, progress slow, and the main purpose, Saser, was slipping away. They made a final reconnaissance, then turned back. Saser, Roberts later said, is a singularly uncooperative mountain. From Panamik they rested, then divided forces. Lorimer explored the Shyok side, while Roberts and Pasang examined the Chamshing and Sakang Lungpa glaciers. On June 6th, they climbed a 20,500-foot peak they called the Lookout. Surveying the ridges and cols between Saser 2 and the 3, every approach seemed barred by rock, ice, or vast seracs. The next day, they reached a gap at 19,500 feet. Peering down on a sheer slope of rotten snow leading to the North Shukpa Kunchang Glacier, Roberts tied in, tried a few steps downward, then retreated as part of the slope avalanched beside him. Saser had spoken again, its walls unyielding. They climbed once more a minor peak called Stundok, and with clouds closing in, turned homeward. On 10th July, the team reunited. Lorimer's photographs from the Shyok confirmed what Roberts had seen. No easy route, only steep faces and rock barriers. By 15th July, they were back in Leh, where the apricots were ripening in the Indus Valley. The expedition had not reached the summit, but it had traced the mountain's moods, its inaccessible flanks, and the quiet dignity of Ladakh itself. Roberts wrote that he would gladly return even without climbing, though he admitted that once in Leh, the call of the Shyok and the North Shukpa would be hard to resist. Even in the Karakoram Mountains, he believed, few mountains are truly inaccessible from every side.